It was roughly equal at 4-3 to 4-2 for Ohio State favor. Average yards per completion was 8.7 for Ohio State, 8.3 for Illinois, and the biggest issue was Ohio State made it into the red zone 6 times and scored each time. Illinois only made it there 3 times, and they had 3 turnovers that cost them 21 points. And if you take 21 points off of the Ohio State score, you may have actually had a pretty good game. Brad, give me your thoughts on this, where I think both of us thought there was quite a bit of a difference in terms of overall talent levels between these two teams.
No question. I have to correct you, Mike. Although the stats say 3 turnovers, when your punter takes a knee, it's actually 4.
Touche, you got me there.
So, no, I don't know. I there's just Ohio State has more talent, and I'm not saying that Illinois isn't a good football team, but this Ohio State team is, arguably the best team in the country, and I think that they have the offensive firepower, and their defense is fantastic. I mean, nobody had scored double digits against them. They played some good competition, and Illinois put up 16 points. I think, that it was pretty impressive. I think you got to be pretty happy with what you saw from this things at times, but you cannot beat the number 1 team in the country that has more talent than you when you don't play your A game or your A-plus game. And Illinois didn't play their A-plus game. And the sad part for me was I thought Ohio State was just okay for them today. I didn't think they were like they weren't like great today. They were just good enough. I thought that Illinois was but Illinois was not good. You can't turn it over 4 times and then make some mistakes. I mean, there was like the goal line when they they're on the goal line and they have a false start from the 1-yard line, which they end up with a field goal instead of a touchdown there. And those are little things that, although, maybe it doesn't make a difference in the end, maybe it does. And so I think that's where you have to execute, almost flawlessly to be successful against a team like Ohio State, especially when they have that much more talent than you do. I mean, they have a lot of NFL players. Multiple guys are probably going to go in the first round, and so that's a tough matchup for Illinois. And I thought they competed all the way down. And like you said, if you'd have told me before the game we're going to hold Ohio State to under 300 yards of total offense, and you're going to have more first downs than them, I just said, wow, Illinois is going to be right there at the end. And, well, not when you turn it over 4 times.
Yeah. And before we even get going any further, Brad, I just wanted to tell you that Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Well, what do these data brokers do? Well, your name, Brad Sturdy, your contact information, 555-1212, your social security number, home address, even information about your family members could all be compiled by data brokers and then sold online. Have you ever been a victim of identity theft, harassment, or doxing? If you haven't, you probably know somebody who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now it's at a special discount for Illini Guys customers. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and use promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and enter code HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. So the thing to remember if you're going to do that is HIT. Brad, as we look at this, Illinois really was, I thought they kept a relatively clean pocket for Luke for most of the game. And while Altmaier, he was 30 for 44, he had his first interception, which I thought was kind of a cheapie. It was a deflection. He had 248 yards with 1 interception, 1 TD. I thought he was off a little bit today compared to his level of play, and maybe that's a compliment to how good he's played. But he just never seemed to get into a full rhythm. He was always a little early, maybe, or holding on to the ball a little late. But I thought it was a good game considering you were going up against the number one defense in the country and a defense that many have compared to some of Nick Saban's Alabama teams.
Oh, no question. I thought he struggled early on with missing some throws, making some late reads, and it's easy for us sitting up in the press box, having the full field view. If he'd sit up here, he could probably throw some really good passes. So, but yeah, but I thought I thought he got better, kind of relaxed, settled down. But at the time, then you're behind the eight ball once you're down, 20-0, and then you only get a field goal. If you get a touchdown there, maybe it's a little different, going into halftime. Then you score a touchdown, start second. If it's 20-14 at that point, maybe they feel a little pressure. But the other thing, Julian Sayin, you talk about Luke Altmaier having no pressure. Julian Sayin, I think, still is he even dirty? Like, I mean, did he even touch the turf? I mean, I don't know if he went to the turf unless he just fell down on his own. So it's really wild when you think about. So I don't know. I think that this is a team that has, atmosphere was fantastic. The pregame, we talked about this. This is the best pregame I've ever seen here at Illinois from a number of people. I saw people that I haven't seen here. And usually it's the same people. There's a lot of new people, a lot of people involved. So they did a great job with that aspect of it. And, obviously a sellout, and this was like a focal point of a game. But then the other side of it is, so you got to come out and you have to be sharp. And they just weren't. And Luke was fine at times. Other times, maybe he made some bad reads, whatever. But, there's a reason Ohio State has the best defense in the country. They're really good. And so Illinois is just, Illinois is just not at that level. And we can talk about why. One team spends, $30 million on their team and one team doesn't. So, you're not going to compete. I mean, there's a reason they have, a salary cap in the major leagues, and and in the NFL and things like that. I mean, NFL has the most most parity, because they have the salary cap to keep things on an even keel. And even the major leagues, I mean, you see teams, like go over the tax, the Yankees, Dodgers. Well, they are always there at the end of the year. They're always in the postseason. So, college football is going to be this way. You're going to have a perfect game to beat some of these teams that have that much more talent.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the key is you just can't afford to have turnovers like that or the occasional errant kneel down by your punter. And obviously he was wanting to field the ball. I get it, but that was a mistake that came at a time that was pivotal in the game. I thought we found out a few things about Illinois. One is Hank Beatty gets yards after the catch, and basically, he was 7 receptions for 48 yards, and 37 of those yards were after the catch, which means Illinois needs to find ways to get him ball in the open field a little more often. I thought that Cole Rusk, which he obviously has had some issues with not being a Mark Bavaro style blocker, but I think he showed that he can go up and get the ball. And I actually think Bowick, I think he's almost an underutilized asset as well because, he drew a pass interference call and really uses his body well to go up and get the ball. So we saw a couple of players going, and we had Lowry. Aiden Lowry came back, and while we know he's not at full strength, 8 rushes for 50 yards, had one really nice run as well. I thought it was nice to see some of these, and Jordan Anderson got in and played a little bit, both running and receiving. So there's things we can build on, and I'm going to throw a kind of a statement out at you, and you tell me if I'm crazy or not. But if Illinois,
you're crazy.
Yeah,
exactly. You meant after the statement. Oh, I'm sorry.
Exactly. But if Illinois' defense plays like this for the rest of the year, there's a good shot that Illinois maybe goes, maybe they only lose one more game down the stretch because their defense played well, and I think their offense will play. They're not going to be playing Ohio State every week.
No, we talked about that. One of the keys was making a play in front of you and then tackling. And I thought they tackled well. I mean, there wasn't a lot of missed tackles. in space and different things like that. And I get Ohio State was very vanilla because they don't have to do anything special. Um, but I thought the defense was much improved. I thought they were much better. Getting a bye week here is going to be good. Get them a little healthier. Get less beat up and be ready to go against Washington And this Washington team is a good team, but they're not like Ohio State, and this is just a different level. And that's the scary part is how Ohio State is one of those teams. I look at that talent and where they are defensively, and I really think that this is a team that probably is going to end up being better than the team that won the national title at the end of the year this year. Now they'll probably lose to Michigan because they do find a way to lose that game. But I mean, no, this team's really good, and they were impressive because I didn't feel like they were great today, and they were still really good. So it's very impressive.
Yeah, I really thought that, I know there's a lot of people who have been very vocal about being frustrated with Aaron Henry, and it's hard for me to get too upset when you go 10-3 last year, and I'm not saying Illinois is going to do that this year, but their defense doesn't give up as many points, or at least allows the offense to be in a place to get the win. And I thought they played relatively well. And the difference of having a great defense is that when you turn the ball over, the defense is good enough to stop the opposing team. But I just think it's unrealistic when you're playing the number one team in the country to essentially have 4 turnovers. And one of the things that Brett Bielema talks about in his Football 101 is that, if you're going to end a possession not scoring, it needs to end with a kick. And that kick generally gets the ball into the other teams, or gets the ball deep in their own territory. Well, they had too many drives that started that ended without a kick, and the Ohio State drive started in Illinois territory. Makes it really hard to win games when you're playing the number one team.
You think? Yeah, I mean that's tough. And I think the big thing is now they got to get these guys all healthy. I think Lawfrey, we saw him. He played and looked better. Looked like he could do some things. Fagan with the shoulder, it looks he was having a hard time. He only carried the ball a couple times after that. And then the other thing is Khalil Valentine. And looking at Valentine, I'm not sure where, obviously they held him out. He was riding a bike on the sideline, doing some things. But in the second half, I think it was pretty clear he wasn't going back in.
Right.
I think they're probably going to evaluate that. I mean, that guy's got a bright future, so they want to kind of see where he's at. I'm sure, but we'll probably. I don't think we'll get anything today, like officially, on what happened, and but hopefully it's not serious. Hopefully it's just something being tweaked, and he'll be good because they do have a bye week next week, so that'd be nice to get him healthy, ready to go to Washington because they're going to need him. Need all hands on deck for that one.
Yeah, exactly. And as I look at Fagan went back and got in and got played a little bit, although you could tell he did have a stinger. One of the questions that came out that folks had as a lifelong Illini fan, Mel here is asking about the $1 million donation, and it seems like that is something that's probably going to be earmarked for the stadium. Obviously, I'm not in control of how that money gets spent, but I'm not certain that it's going to be a player acquisition. But I do think if you're go ahead.
Well, Matt Stevens actually asked Josh Whitman at that press conference about that, and he didn't say no, that it wouldn't be used for player acquisition. But obviously, most of it's going to be earmarked towards the stadium.
Yeah.
But, when the rev share kicks in, Illinois is going to have about $15 million that they're going to spend on football, roughly. And that's more than they've been spending. Now, other teams are going to spend that. Ohio State's not going to stop spending money. But if Ohio State's spending $30 million and you can spend $20 million, now you're at least in the ballpark, right? I mean, you're much closer than if it's, last year where it was 22-5 or something like that. I mean, it's just difficult to. And this year, what is it, 30-8 or 9 or whatever, something like that. So as this rev share kicks in, I think that'll allow Illinois to do a better job of competing. I think it closes the gap a little, not a lot, but a little. And then the other thing is you have to really evaluate well. I mean, Illinois done pretty good. Brett Bielema does a pretty good job of that. I mean, he's got some guys, but at the end of the day, the finding Devin Witherspoon type guys and finding guys like that is rare. It's not that easy to do, and so you have to, you're going to have to roll the dice some, and you're going to have to get a little lucky on certain things. But it would have been nice. Like to have Devin Witherspoon covering Jeremiah Smith today. I think that would have been a better matchup.
Yeah.
Hey, how about him on that 2-yard fade? I mean, the separation he got in 2 yards was just insane. I mean, there's a reason that guy was going to be the number 1 pick in the draft had he gone pro. I mean, he's an NFL stud down the road.
Yeah, and let me be clear on one thing. Is Illinois a CFP team? Probably not, but again, I think there seems to be a big difference between Ohio State, Oregon, maybe, Ohio State, Oregon, Miami. We'll see if Indiana, how close they are.
Indiana, I think, because they've spent a ton of money.
Yep. I mean, yeah, exactly. They've got Eli Lilly, they've got Mark Cuban, and there's a bank that's funding that really good over there, and they've got dollars to spend. And look, Illinois has billionaires in Silicon Valley, and they have a large alumni network. One never knows. It takes one phone call to get a little bit more money to run these things. You can look at Campbell, who's funding TCU. One guy can. I guess he's one of 3, but still, you can really turn it on. But I think there's about 3 or 4 teams this year that are better than everybody else, and then I think you can kind of shake them up. And I think Illinois, would they be a top 12 team if they went out the rest of the season? They could be, but and I'm not willing to say they're not one. But if they end up 10-2 with losses to Ohio State and Indiana, those look like pretty darn good losses right now, although you'd like the Indiana game to be a little closer. I don't know what you think of the CFP, but again, my guess is Brett Bielema is planning on going 1-0 every weekend and forcing people to make a choice at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think at the end of the day, though, if you finish this season, there's still a lot ahead of them, this football team. I mean, whether it's 9-3 or 8-4, if you do that, 9-3, 8-4. That's pretty good. I mean, I think you got to walk before you can run. You know what I mean? So, I think that's where you can make a move. So, you can kind of get better. So, I don't know. This is I don't know. It's pretty. I think that there's a huge gap in talent. That doesn't mean you can't win that game. I mean, there's probably a gap in talent between UCLA and Penn State, but these are college kids. Sometimes they don't show up. Although UCLA, you got to break up the Bruins now after they dominated the Spartans, right? Maybe they're really good. Who knows? Maybe
Sean Foster
was that bad.
The worst coach of all time.
He might be. I mean, clearly I don't know how that happens, but I think the bye week. The number 2 receiver for Ohio State is Carnell Tate.
Yes.
Yeah, he's pretty good too. I mean, but no, I think that this bye week's huge, and they get better, get ready, and go to Washington and take care of business there, and they'll be that's going to be I think that game would probably be close to a pick-em. I mean, or could be a couple points here or there. It's going to be a tough game, and so I think if they are ready for that game and they play well, and they win that game, then that opens up a lot of doors. You look, if you're 6-2. Heading into those Final Four games where you're going to be favored, if you win that Washington game, you're going to be favored. You're staring 10-2 in the face with just competent football and playing well, because you're not playing another team with the talent. Even Washington, you're not playing a team like this talent-wise yet. Ever. I mean, the rest of this year. I don't care. Even unless you make the playoff, you're not playing a team with this talent level.
Yes. I totally agree on that. And one of the things I looked at too coming in from Twitter is there was some severely bad officiating, and there were definitely like the pass interference that it wasn't called in the first half might have made a little bit of difference. Overall, I guess I'm never, I'm not too impressed if I watch games even as a non-fan. But I don't know that there was anything that the referees that I would tag on the referee as meaning that Illinois lost today. I think it was just a better Ohio State team, and Illinois then provided turnovers to make sure that the better team prevailed. Brad, did you think the refs changed anything that significantly?
Here's the thing: they made some calls. I thought they did some weird things, but I'm not. Did they miss a call here and there? Yeah, but I don't think there was anything totally egregious that happened. Illinois, I don't know. I think that Illinois has, they had some opportunities to make plays on their own. The refs wouldn't matter. Like that false start is one of those like mental plays, those little things like that. So those are the kind of plays that you can't make. And yeah, are you going to miss calls? Yeah, it happens. But I was actually impressed that they overturned that Smith catch, which was, that was actually through replay. I thought that was interesting. So, and like I say, they missed calls, but you had opportunity to overcome that.
Yeah, so. No, I agree. And then of course we've got let's go to this one instead. Zero explosive athletes. I don't know that I would say Illinois is at zero, but Illinois has less explosive athletes when you have a $9 million budget, and your adversary this week has a $30 million budget. But I think overall, Illinois, outside of Oregon and Indiana right now, Illinois can compete. Maybe Penn State, but Illinois proved.
I think they compete. We saw that last year. I thought they hung around with Penn State a little bit last year. And I think they're better this year. So I don't know. I think they have some explosive athletes. I think, maybe the difference is, they're obviously tiers. I think you compare. I guess we kind of forget how different guys look against Purdue last week than they did against Ohio State.
Right.
This week they're not getting the same amount of separation because the Ohio State's just more explosive. But no, and I don't know. I think there's some interesting comment. Indiana looked more explosive than OSU. I think that Ryan Day summed that up. Ryan Day said he didn't even watch film of the Indiana game because he isn't playing that team today, and he knew that. There was no point. That was just a weird anomaly. I don't think that's a typical thing. I don't think you can. Do I think Indiana's explosive? Yeah, we'll see. They're obviously they may get a chance to play each other down the road, and we'll see what happens there. So, but
and also, Brad, let me jump in here, but OSU looked like they were trying to keep this relatively vanilla. I think they felt like they could go out and beat Illinois, and they did. But I don't know that they. I don't think a cornerback blitz is necessarily revealing too much. No. But they really didn't do. That was about the most out of the ordinary thing they did all day today. They went out there and won the game, and it looks like they're using. They're trying to keep a lot of things under wraps.
Well, here's the thing. I will guarantee you they had things ready to go if they needed them. Yeah. But, when you have a defense, like I don't think people realize how good this defense is. I think they look at it and say, oh, they're not that good, whatever. I'm telling you what, this Ohio State defense is insanely good. They are, no team had scored double figures against them. They hadn't given up a red zone touchdown, I think it was, till today. You up 2. And they played Texas. It's not like they played bad teams coming into this one. So this is a really good defense, and they're still healthy. I think also, Sayan's a first-year starter, so I think they're trying to develop him and not let him keep his confidence and so forth. And so, I don't know. This is. It should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think Sayan played really well, and I do think that he played a little better than Altmaier. And the one thing though that I think is off part
did Altmaier have Jeremiah Smith?
And he doesn't have the offensive line.
Yeah, or Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate. It's really good. We've seen that. You give a really good quarterback bad receivers, and they suddenly don't look as good. So
yes.
I don't know. I'm not saying Illinois receivers are bad, but you're talking about NFL guys versus good college players.
You're talking. Look, when you look at Tate and Smith, and then what they have behind them, this may be the best wide receiver group that Ohio State's had in the last 10 years. And they've got so many guys in the NFL that you can't count them playing wide receiver. So, I mean, this is definitely there's football is more of a team sport than any other sport out there.
Do you think the offensive line did a better job protecting Luke today? I mean, I thought they really did. There was only 2 sacks. I mean, there was some pressure at different times, but they were much better today, and they've been much better the last couple weeks. So
yeah, I do think the one thing
that's 3 weeks.
Yeah, the one thing that has caused me concern, we've had three sacks, one each of the last 3 weeks on cornerback blitzes. So there are some things that you can definitely get at the Illini by running certain packages. And I'd like to see. I'm sure that's something that Brett Bielema is going to work on in this time off. You've got time for practice, and you've got the opportunity to kind of go after some of those, and practice and rep some of those things that are causing you problems. And I think some of the arcane, blitzes does give this offensive line a little bit of issues.
Yeah, I agree. I think this speed gives them, some troubles. But I think the other thing I saw was, today was I thought that Illinois, tackling was much better for Illinois. They didn't miss near as many tackles as they had previously. Took better angles.
Dramatically better, right?
Flowed better to the ball. I mean, they were, there was one player, I think it was Rosiak, he looked like he was shot out of a cannon to make a tackle one time. I was like, wait, where's that been? Where's that pursuit? So, no, but I thought they tackled well in space. They didn't have a lot of missed tackles. So that's a good thing. I mean, that's what you have to do when you're not as talented, right? You don't have, you don't have that. You have to be better at the fundamental things, and that's making tackles, that's being in the right position, all those types of things.
Yeah, and you're talking about less missed tackles against the best team they've played. Yeah. So you're talking about guys who are good with the ball, and that's got to be, again, I'm sure Brett Bielema is not happy about losing this game. I'm sure he's, he comes into every game planning to win it, but there are some positives that you can take out of this. And again, I think I said it at the start of the podcast. If Illinois plays defense at this level for the rest of the season, they've got a really, really good chance of going 10-2. And boy, to get a 10-win season under your belt in the regular season would be fantastic for the Illini. I'm not saying it's going to be easy or it's a guarantee, but this defense is quite a bit different today than what we've seen the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I think you're playing your toughest game off a bye week now. I mean, toughest remaining game. You've got a bye week, and so that's if you win that game, I mean, you got to feel really positive about your chances to run the table and go 10-2. And if that still keeps everything in play. Now, do I think that they should be a college football playoff team? Do I think they're I'll say this way. They go 10-2. Do I think if that happens, they're one of the best 12 teams in the country? Probably not. But does that mean they don't get in? No, it doesn't. It depends how other things happen, because you could have other teams lose games they shouldn't lose. So, just take care. Again, as fans and people who are, watching and writing, we can look at all this stuff down the road. If this happens, players just got to say, hey, we're going to get healthy this week, and then next week we're ready. We got to go beat Washington, and then everything else take care of itself.
Yeah, and if you would have told me that Ohio State, Smith would have 5 catches for 42 yards, Tate would have 4 catches for 41 yards, and those would be your 2 leading receivers, I would have said Illinois is going to do pretty good. If I would have been told Bo Jackson's going to be 10 for 47 and Donaldson was going to be 13 for 44 from a rushing standpoint, I would have been pretty excited about the Illini's chances. And it comes down to you can't turn the ball over, and you have to play mistake-free against a team this good. And
hey, the Illinois punter was 1 carry for minus 14 yards.
That'll be his career mark. How was your rushing career? Well, I was hoping to get to 0.
Not great, Bob.
Just a little outside. So I mean, there was, like I said, there was a lot of things to feel positive about.
How about Cole Rusk too? I think Cole Rusk is I don't know. That was impressive. So
his elevator
was,
goes up pretty high. I'd be
yeah,
throwing occasionally. I think I would just throw a ball going. Only Cole can get to this. Let's just see what happens.
he looked good receiving. Obviously, blocking is not a strength yet, but I thought he looked good catching the football. And this was a, like I said, I wanted Illinois to be competitive. I told a lot of people that I predicted 31-17. So this game, but here's the thing: this game was actually more competitive than I thought it was going to be. In the sense that had Illinois taken care of the football, which is what I thought they had to do.
Yes.
Take care of the football or win the turnover. What if Illinois wins the turnover battle 2-0? Ohio State has 2 turnovers, Illinois has 0. Obviously, Ohio State has 0, but I think if that is happened, then Illinois actually had a chance to win this game. But that's the way it had to be. That's the way it had to be.
Turnovers, right, Brad?
Yep.
I mean, look at
so
that.
I don't think they could win just a straight up game where both teams played their best and Illinois, lost the turnover battle. I don't think that's possible. So
right. Yeah, and I just, like I said, there's a lot going on, and this is one of the times I'll talk about scores are sometimes deceptive, and sometimes there's games where it's 34-16 and you're like, yeah, it wasn't that close at all. But Illinois had its opportunities and they made mistakes at the worst possible time, and again, for those of you who I wish Brett would do a video. He could do a video series that football coaches would use across the country on his football 101. But he did that with the members of the media when he first showed up. And look, they broke a lot of Brett's rules, and those turnovers and the turnovers in your own territory, not finishing possessions with a kick. If you're not going to score, you would like to kick it into, those are things that you do 3 times in a game, and then you have the unexpected kneel down on 4th down. Those things just kill you, and that's where I think the Illini, you can't do that against teams that are your peers, and it's really hard when you're doing that against the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, I totally agree, and there were some, I think there are some positives to take away with this. There's a lot of things to work on, to work on getting better against Washington. But if I'm, you mentioned this, like you never go into a game thinking or wanting to lose, right? I mean, you're saying you're going to lose. You have to have, and I felt like they thought that their game plan would be bend but don't break, don't give up big plays, let them make some mistakes, make a big play here and there and not turn the ball over, take care of the football. Take advantage, same thing. And I think they thought that would be a way to win this game. I thought their offensive adjustments were actually pretty good when you think about how they went to going more of a, not subbing as much on offense so that Ohio State couldn't sub on defense. You saw them do that a lot on those drives where they wouldn't change personnel. And, so we'll get snap counts later, but I thought, some of those guys were on the field for more snaps, some of those wideouts for more snaps than they've been on the field in any game this year. And so I think that could be very, very intriguing to kind of look at that. And I think they saw something and they went after it. I will say this. I thought there were 2 plays that Barry Lanning ran in the red zone that were fantastic. I thought that shovel pass to Aiden Lawfrey that didn't quite get in before the false start, and then I thought the Beatty pitch to Lawfrey, handoff to Beatty, pitch to Lawfrey. I thought those were both really great play calls in those situations, and one of them got a touchdown, the other one got it down to the 1, and without the false start, probably gets in another touchdown. So, so I thought Lenny made some good calls. I thought he brought out a little bit of everything today.
Yeah, and the other thing we have is you look at a few things. Let's go through a little bit here. But when was the last time we had back-to-back 10-win seasons? Well, that would be never. So that has never happened at Illinois. And Illinois has only had, I believe, either 5 or 6 10-win seasons in 100 and whatever years that we've been playing football.
Even when they won national titles, they only played like 8 or 9.
So. Yeah, and you look at Ohio State, and I actually did a chart at Illini guys. I don't have it at my fingertips right now, but I don't know. Ohio State's like won double digits for like the last, like every year but one or so in the last 20 years. So the Luke Fickell year where he coached as an interim coach at the end of the Urban Meyer, they went 6-7. And by the way, that 7 losses was the most losses that they've had in the last 75 years. So, you're talking if Brett Bielema was able to do uh, back-to-back 10-win seasons, he would be the first coach in the history of the school to accomplish that. That's a big deal, and that will help get more NIL money, and it'll also help attract more talent. Um, and this is good and I have not checked this, but let's just assume William is correct. That's the difference in how much you are, player acquisition. That's a resource cost, and certainly that's where Illinois. When was the last time Illinois beat a player uh, that beat Ohio State for a player that Ohio State wanted?
In basketball or football?
Let's go football. Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe they wanted Regis Ben.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah.
I'll go back to that.
Martez Wilson, maybe.
Yeah. So I mean, generally, if Ohio State wants the player, they can go to a higher level, and it is what it is. But I do think that the talent level and what Brett Bielema does is try to find those diamonds in the rough to make the difference up. Linebackers need more speed. I'm not going to argue with that at all.
No, I think so. But I don't know that was the big issue today.
I agree.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just think that I think that wasn't our big issue today. Somebody said it wasn't competitive. One person says Ohio State wasn't trying on offense. Well, they weren't. Here's the thing. They were taking what Illinois gave them because they don't have to do anything special when you have a defense that's the best defense in the country. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, you do what you need to win the game. Like, I don't know this was a situation where they didn't have to do that stuff. You know what I mean? So,
and don't you think that's a huge, people know, Illini guys, fans know I've been pretty critical of Ryan Day, and it is my opinion. Whether it's provable is irrelevant, but it's my opinion. If you switched, Brett Bielema and Ryan Day, I think Brett Bielema probably wins more than one national title the last 6 years. And I'm not certain if Ryan Day at Illinois wins 10 games. But, regardless of that opinion, I got to give Day credit because he's going out and they're doing what's necessary to win. He's taking what the defense is given. He's not showing too much to his opponents. And he's not really worried about the style points. He's just worried about the W, and I think that focus is something that may really help his team, especially when they go up and they've got to play that team from up north, and I'm not certain this year whether it's at the Horseshoe or up at the Big House, but I think it's important to stay focused on just getting the W and not worrying about style points, and I think Brett Bielema is very similar that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's something, this stuff is part of this. I mean, Ohio State doesn't have to do anything, and also they aren't showing anything on film that people are going to see later. Yeah, so I don't know. Well, and the guy says Jay brings in proven coordinators. I mean, I think Barry Lenning's pretty damn good, guys. I don't know. I think he's proven. I think he's really good. I think that, Day brings in proven coordinators from the NFL, and he pays them more than most head coaches make. I mean, you know what I mean? They're because they have just stupid amounts of money there. I mean, if Brett Bielema could pay, millions of dollars to a guy, $3 million to a coordinator, then probably you have a different pool of people. But here's the reality. It's Brett Bielema's defense. I mean, Brett Bielema, Aaron Henry may call it, but it's Brett Bielema. They're going to do what Brett Bielema wants them to do. I mean, look at what Ohio State, they actually pulled a sitting Power 5 head coach. Sitting Power 5 head coach to be their offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
last year. I mean, think about that. That's crazy.
And they pulled it from another Big Ten school, which allowed Deshaun Foster to
ruin UCLA.
So
yeah, I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that would have been the equivalent of like Illinois deciding, you know what, we're going to pull in
Greg Schiano.
Greg Schiano to be our defensive coordinator. I mean, that's crazy. So, and I think he says the guy that we got. I think Lenny's very average, way too cute, still in the red zone. I thought those red zone calls were fantastic. I mean, I think that's what when you can't just blow people off the ball. I think you have to do things like that. There have been plays that I didn't like, but I thought he called a good enough game today to be successful. And he's pretty good, and that's why he's going to get some head coach looks after this season. So I think he's very good as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
you can't look at it and say one thing. Ohio State's better at every position. Illinois doesn't have any talent, all this stuff. But Illinois scored 16 points. Illinois had a really good offense, but it's not because of the coordinator, it's because of the talent. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You know what I mean?
That play where Hank ended up pitching to Lowry. That was a thing of beauty. I mean, you could
great play call.
Even Ohio State, their players just like stop. Like I'm not going to do.
Yep.
We're not getting him. It was just
that was one of those. That was one of those tip your cap plays, right? You're like, yes. Oh yeah, okay, hey, good job. So
now the other comment was it's crazy that we don't play Trimble more, and obviously Trimble's a very good player. But I will tell you, I don't know the individual reasons on that, but I will say that if you want to get on the field for Illinois, you better know how to block. Now that may not be the
Mikey probably. I think Mike Trimble weighs about the same as your left half.
Oh, wow,
I think that's the biggest problem.
Yep.
So,
and I agree. Like I said, it's one of those things where again. I think Brett Bielema has the respect of a Ryan Day. Ryan Day didn't try to run the score up, etc. But I think this was a day that you can build upon. And
totally
as a fan, you're going to look at all the things and think, oh my gosh, this sucks, that sucks, the other thing sucks. But as a player and a coach, you can't afford that negative thinking.
Nope.
You've got to find what can we accentuate that we did well, and then what that we didn't do well, can we put a fix in play for? And you can't get into this, Brad. You've coached for decades, but you can't get into this game.
You're dating me, Mike.
Yes, yeah. No, I'm not. I'd like to go on the record. No, I'm not dating Brad. But I do think that it's really important to think there's just a different perspective from a fan standpoint than somebody who's out there and has to get a W every weekend.
Yeah, no question. I mean, we can do this and we can look at that. But this is one of those things. What are you going to do? Well, here's the thing: whether or not you're upset about loss or you're mad about the loss, you're going to have to play Washington in 2 weeks. You play Washington in 2 weeks. It doesn't matter what. So you have an option. You can complain about this or move on. So yeah, I think that's part of it. I mean, that's part of this game is moving on to the next play. So, but this is right. So that's a chicken and the egg thing, right? They didn't have to get aggressive on offense, but Illinois made them play underneath. I mean, that they didn't let anybody get over the top. That was the whole game plan, was to not let them play that way, and which is fine because it's part of it. But this is still that's I don't know. I think that you take away the turnovers, it's a totally different game, and then you force Ohio State to be more aggressive. Now maybe they make a few mistakes, and that's what you needed to have happen. So it didn't happen. So at the end of the day, you flush it, you move on, and now you focus on the next one. But I do think there's some things to build on.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll be honest with you, the first interception was probably a PI on Ohio State. One of the things you see in folks who haven't been in the press box, you can see Brad's up on the top level. I'm down on the front level. But there are small TVs that are up above. We don't get the best view of the instant replays, and we're trying to get it on our phone while we're trying to watch what's going on, locally, right in front of us. So I cannot. I honestly, I didn't see if that was a PI. So
where we have a great view if we were playing quarterback because we could see everything up there. That's where you can see everything upstairs. Is the players moving. You see who's open and guys running free, and you're like, oh, throw it to him. But where we struggle is those minor little things where you're trying to see up close. Without your binoculars, you can't really see.
Yeah, so I gave you a little view there, but it is definitely It very well could have been.
Yeah, following up on that, I thought Ohio State played defense a lot like Illinois played defense when Ryan Walters was here.
Yes.
Is that press man-to-man coverage? They have their hands on the receivers a lot, thinking they're going to get some pass interference calls occasionally, but they think that's going to outweigh. I think there were a couple of them today, but it's going to outweigh the fact that it's going to be hard for guys to get open in their breaks and get separation because they've got their hands on them a lot. And I thought there were probably a lot of, so I think there were a lot of. Situations where maybe you could have called that, but they're not going to call out there. So.
And look, part of the thing that they bank on is that the refs are going to say, you know what, I can't call too many pass interferences because I'll be determining the game, and they're right.
And I don't mean this. This is for William there.
Yeah,
I have to add this. Like, there is if you want to, Illinois is a huge school. They have a huge alumni base. They have tremendous resources. You're exactly right. They are on a different level than Ohio State's on a different level than Illinois when it comes to that resources. And that's just a fact. I mean, we can say it's not. I mean, Ohio State's selling at a 100,000 seat stadium or 90-some thousand. Illinois is selling at a 60,000 seat stadium, and we're thinking we just, won World War III or something. You know what I mean? It's just it's a different level. And the NIL dollars are different. The budgets are different. It's just different. And I, do I think that means Illinois shouldn't beat Minnesota and shouldn't beat everybody else? Doesn't mean they can't beat them, but they're not on the same level as Ohio State. And if you think they are, then you're not right. I mean,
look,
I don't want to tell you.
If you want to fundraise, let's go talk about, like, again, as a sales guy, if you tell me my territory is going to be predominantly, my home base is going to be 150,000 population versus a city of over, that's around 1 million, and a metropolitan area that's well over 1 million. That's what Columbus, Ohio is. So just without even like forcing yourself to get in a car and travel more than a half hour, they've got all those pockets that they can go to in terms of businesses and entrepreneurs. Yeah. And then if you look at the history of the school, the Ohio, the stadium was built with the university not paying for very much of it, because the city businesses and boosters realized how important that was, and they helped make the stadium have the opportunity to be bigger and expandable. So 100 years ago, these people were doing that, and the results that you see are, since 1950, they've had 5 losing seasons, and the most they've ever lost in a single season is 7. Illinois is markedly different than that, so we're not trying to make excuses. It's just a different set of circumstances there that gives you kind of an idea. Even like at Illinois, I got one here just like wins by decade. And if you go in, this was a couple years old, but if you go in like to the 2010s and 2020s, Illinois won 45 games and 46 games respectively in 10 years. Ohio State would be at 45 and 40 in 4 years in those decades. So over the years, they've done what is necessary to win, and that's been built upon year after year. Doesn't mean Illinois can't do that, but it will take time to build that. And that's why I get, like, for instance, I talked to an Oregon fan to remember when Oregon was one of the worst teams in football. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, well, it was 30 years ago, but they suck. And then if you look at Indiana, the Indiana fans are like, we deserve more respect. I'm like, hey, you know what? Signetti's great. You guys have started off fantastic, but it's only been a year and a half. Give it some time before people give you the tip of the cap that gets given to Ohio State, Alabama.
Hey, the Indiana fans also want the same. They want the same on the basketball side. They want credit for all the history, and then on the football side, they want credit for recency. So you can't have it both ways, right? I mean, they get so much Well, yeah, but they get so much respect in basketball, even though they haven't won anything for, I mean, forever. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
been a long time. So, yeah. And so, but here's the other thing. Like, that doesn't mean that Illinois can't beat Ohio State and can't catch up with them. It's just going to take time, and you're going to have to, just things are going to have to be a little bit different for moving forward. But yeah, I think that the other thing is, like you mentioned, the metropolitan area. The other thing is Illinois. Somebody will say, well, Illinois has Chicago. They do. They share Chicago with Notre Dame. They share Chicago with Northwestern, and also they share them with the Cubs. And well, maybe not the White Sox, but the Bears and the Bulls, right? And
Well,
so this is an interesting conundrum, because in Ohio State they share it with the Columbus Crew and the Blue Jackets. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's a AAA baseball team. So everything funnels from that metropolitan area is Ohio State. It's all about Ohio State, and that's the reality. And so it's also mostly about Ohio State football.
and modern day coaches. Look, I'll tell you, there's probably 3 or 4 regional quote capitals unquote around the country: L.A., Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, and New York. And those cities are basically national recruiting grounds where the big programs, whenever there's a really good player, they just parachute in with cash. So, for example, if Georgia, as good as they are in football, but if they could dominate the Atlanta metro area, they'd be even better. But they have to worry about Ohio State and USC and Texas coming in and trying to take the best players. And Illinois has that same challenge, because you've got that Chicago area that's heavily recruited by Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa, and Wisconsin, and that doesn't even include, when the really good player comes along, all the national teams that parachute in with cash and prizes, so to speak. And yep. Brad, you've covered recruiting longer than many people. You can talk about how challenging it is to deal with the big city politics in those areas.
It's intriguing for sure. It's always fun.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. It's tough, but I mean, that's where you got to navigate it all, and it's part of the process. Doesn't mean Illinois can't do it. Just it's going to be harder, and I don't know. That's and I think that sometimes Illinois actually had no. Yeah, so I think I don't know. I actually I don't know. I kind of like the. I just like. I like where Illinois is at, though. I really do. I like where they're at, what their potential is, and I know it's not Champaign University. Yes, I get that. When I was paying tuition bills for my daughter, I knew it didn't go to Champaign University. But thanks for the geography lesson.
But unfortunately, with past generations of administrators at the University of Illinois before Josh Whitman, you got to go back to Neil Stoner for an athletic director who really understood the potential of Illinois athletics. Yes. Because there were so many people who were satisfied, hey, as long as you don't get in trouble from the NCAA, as long as you don't operate in the red, you stay in the black, and as long as you're competitive with no definition of what competitive is, you're okay. Well, Josh Whitman doesn't operate under those rules. Josh Whitman operates under, you're going to follow the rules, but you're also going to win games. Brad Underwood came here and he was told that he was going to win games and find ways to do it, and Josh would help him as best he could. And that's important, and we're starting to see things change around. Brett Bielema, the same thing, but it takes time to get that rolling. And you'll see that as the more street cred that Brett Bielema and Brad Underwood get each year, the more NIL money they attract, and that's what is necessary to win.
Yeah, no question. And that's at the end of the day, that's the reality. And it's like I don't know. I guess I'm
going to actually kind of agree with Stephen Russ. The huge difference in NIL. You won't beat without luck or an extreme amount of discipline, but the bottom line is your margin for error is much, much less than a team that spends a lot more money. But let's be real honest with you. Somebody might say that about Illinois basketball the same way. They're like, oh, well, Brad Underwood, his NIL funds are enough that he can get these studs from Europe.
That's true. Underwood was talking about that the other day, how they can now with NIL allows them to get those guys, and you can get the better guys, and that's a I don't know, it's pretty good. But yeah, so it's always interesting. So I do agree with St. Dominic's Rosary that Illinois can be better in the portal. But the other thing is Brett also has to retain guys, and so he was looking at more of a retention thing and filling holes. They did go out and get some defensive linemen this past year from Wisconsin, so they did some good things. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just think it was different. I don't know. I don't know. And we can, it's a lot of times. So, I just want people to remember that, a few years back they were looking at, gosh, if we could just get a guy who could get us to a bowl game every year, we'd be so happy. I don't see happiness. Do you see happiness, Mike?
No, I don't.
I don't see happiness. And so this is what happens, though. This is where we end up you always want what you can't have, right? Or you don't have yet. And so, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but I think the Illinois is competitive. They're a team that's going to be in a bowl game again this year. And, what level of bowl is still to be determined. But this is a good football team. They just ran into a buzzsaw.
Yeah, and I think the NIL has helped Illinois catch up a little bit, and I do think that it's been used smart. Again, you want to take an IQ test against Josh Whitman, good luck. Go ahead and do it. But I do think ultimately, I was talking to Lauren Tate, and many of you guys know Lauren Tate's the dean of Big Ten sports reporters. He's going to have his 94th birthday next month. Has covered Illinois for 50-something years, and then grew up in Monticello, so he's been going to games since the 1940s. And I asked him, I said, do you think Brett's the best football coach since John Makovic? And he's not going to answer that because Lauren's going to play it down the middle. But what he did say, which is really interesting, is he said that Brett runs this like a leader of a big organization. And he gives responsibility to his defensive coordinator, his offensive coordinator. And he said that's different than what it was where Mike White was doing the offense and had somebody else doing the defense. And John Makovic was doing the offense. And he had, he had, what's his name, doing the defensive coordinator, and why am I blanking on his name? Ended up being the head coach after him. But he had, he didn't even ask for a defensive game plan. He's like, that's your job. Ron Turner did the offense, and the defense was, something else. And he said Brett runs it like a head coach, a true head coach, not a half the team's my team and half the team's somebody else's. So I think they're on a good path. And today, I don't think there was any dishonor. The Buckeyes were a better. Well, how can Texas recruit when everybody recruits Dallas? But that's the same thing. You go into Dallas, and you got Dallas players who go to Alabama. You got Dallas players who go to USC, go to Notre Dame. So if Texas could dominate Dallas, they'd be way better than they are right now. The other thing that's really interesting about a place like Dallas is you have to figure out if these kids have maxed out, because down in Dallas there is a lot of disposable income. So these kids who are quarterbacks, they have like a footwork coach, they have a passing coach, they have a conditioning coach, they have a speed and agilities coach. They got like 40 different coaches, and you're like, when this kid gets into college, is he going to be any better? And Texas over the last 15 years has had a challenge of bringing in kids who are like 5-stars who don't get that much better in college because they had kind of maxed out everything. So there are some challenges there. And Illinois is like everybody else. You got to figure them out. And the best way to figure them out is to have more money to spend than the other guy. And, if you got more money, you can make mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's kind of the way it is.
Here's the thing. We've talked about this a million times. It's all about, in the reality is it's all about you have less margin for error. It doesn't mean you can't win, just you have less margin for error at the Illinois level versus the Ohio State level and the Oregon level and the Michigan and Penn State, what they're spending on their programs. So hopefully Illinois can up that ante and get a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think Matt is relatively close to here because I'm seeing other people come. So hopefully he'll be jumping on any second. We can kind of, ask a little bit about it. And yeah, I mean these aren't excuses. It's just things you got to work through. And I got to be honest with you. I look at some of these comments and I don't know if there we got Matt. All right, Matt. Got a couple questions for you. We're hearing from people that Brett was criticizing the defensive play calls on third down. I'm asking you for your interpretation of what you saw at the press conference.
He was frustrated that they didn't get off the field on third down. He was more frustrated about the mistakes that led to the defense being in its own territory from the beginning in the first place. Yeah, I mean that first drive he was frustrated, but if I remember correctly, I think they only scored 3 points on that drive. So Aaron got off the field with a field goal on that one. But he was frustrated that they had like a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and they didn't get off the field. That's going to be looked at in the bye week, but there was more frustration in one when we gave them long fields. We couldn't get off the field on third down, but then we made too many mistakes to give them short fields, and then basically, I mean, you didn't ask, but like Matt Bailey kind of put it, like everybody bitched and complained last week about the defense giving up big plays and giving up, explosives and not being able to tackle well. He said the turnovers and the mistakes kind of made it look like the defense already gave up their 50-yard explosive play before they ever got on the field. So kudos to Matt Bailey for giving out a really good analogy for I thought the defense bowed up and played about as well as they could when I felt like offense and special teams kind of gave the game away in the first 30 minutes. So that was what Brett was really, really, really peeved about.
Anything about being frustrated at the offensive play calling by Lunny or anything of that matter?
We thought so, and then in the end he said the head coach decided to not use tempo in the first half, and that was a mistake. Apparently it was asked on the headset between the first and the second quarter, do we want to just go tempo? To quote Brett, well, am I allowed? I'm like, hey, boss, am I allowed to cuss on this?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Quoting Brett Bielema, they couldn't stop shit when we went tempo, and it was allowed. It was said on the headset between the first and second quarter. Do you want us to go tempo? And the head coach said no.
Okay.
So he said that was a mistake on the head coach's part, and he said there was probably some play calls that led to drives stalling out. I mean, no, I don't think. I think if folks are wanting to grasp at straws and say that Brett Bielema bus tossed his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator, we need to sit down one-on-one, you, Illini Guy subscriber, and me, and watch the thing together. And because I don't think we're not interpreting the same thing.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
Yeah, I find it interesting. It's funny though. Don't you think a lot of it? I think he was afraid to go tempo, because if you go tempo and you go 3 and out against that defense, then your defense is back on the field, and that's gonna. They've already been put behind the 8 ball. It's a tough call. I think he should have gone tempo because you're playing. I think they were almost played a little bit not to lose at some point. You know what I mean? And by playing not to lose and playing conservative, generally speaking, you end up losing, right? I mean, but they were going to lose to Ohio State 9 out of 10, at least 9 out of 10 times when they play them, right? I mean, they have to. Right. There's a difference in talent.
I just feel like, just to sum up exactly what Sturdy said, the head coach agrees with Sturdy in the hindsight of he thinks the head coach screwed that up. Where it's like, I don't want to go tempo.
If he just listened to me all the time,
right? Like, I mean, I think what Bielema is saying is Barry asked, "Hey, do you want us to go tempo?" And Bielema said no. And at the end, he said, "Oh, no, like Barry's not doing something. Look, I want everybody to understand this because this is important to listen and understand. There isn't anything that this football program touches that the head football coach doesn't have control over. Not a thing, not a single thing. Nobody is freelancing in the Smith Center or at Memorial Stadium on game day. Nobody." And so at the end, when he clarified, "Oh, no, like we had conversations and the head coach said no, and he probably shouldn't have." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, and so what they're going to do in the bye week is go, "Hey, Barry, that's probably a good idea. We probably ought to run 90% tempo after the bye week anyway." So I think that's some of the things that he's looking at. I initially thought it wasn't a full-throated defense of Aaron Henry, even though I asked him, "Hey, Brett, like you were adamant after the Purdue game, you wanted to limit the explosives and you wanted to tackle them as soon as they got the ball, and you were in front of them." I thought that happened today all day in Aaron Henry's defense. He mentioned they couldn't get off the field on third down, and that's frustrating, but I didn't think it was a full-throated defense of Aaron Henry. Funny thing is that the players gave a full-throated defense of Aaron Henry and said, "Hey, we think our secondary played balls out today, short of a couple of mistakes." And so I mean, I think Bielema is ticked at the loss because he knows that if Illinois plays, a somewhat perfect ball game, they're probably winning.
This is a day that Illinois. This is a day that Ohio State had the door open.
I don't think today was the day to ask, "Hey, did the defense make progress from week to week?" But I think they're going to go back and they're going to look at the film and realize, "Hey, I think the defense made progress from week to week." And going into the bye week and figuring out what you have and specifically what you don't have, Xavier Scott, they're going to figure some stuff out. And they need to figure some stuff out up front. Like, we got James Thompson today, and he was like, "Hey, up front, we got to be better because we think our secondary played pretty darn well today." So, no, I think that was the overall. Mike, look, and I'm going to say this. I think there's people that are just never like the cake is baked on what they think about Aaron Henry and what they think about Barry Loney when they ask those types of questions.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So we don't like to go over an hour and 15 minutes. Matt, any other things that came out during that? Did you get an update on Valentine?
No.
Okay.
No injury updates. Okay. Luke Altmaier's like pretty much looking like somebody shot his dog because, if you look at it from the standpoint of he's 23 years old, he's never probably going to have another chance to play number one in the country on national television. And he didn't play his best game today. And the offense didn't play their best game today. So the analogy for him was we all know when the schedule comes out when Alabama, because he grew up in the South, we all know when Alabama's coming to town.
Yep.
Here we all know when Ohio State's coming to town, and you got to make the most of that opportunity. And he didn't think Illinois did that today, and his head coach agrees with him.
That's a fair thing to say, because if they would have played played a little better, you take those again 21 points off of turnovers. You can say that the defense earned them, and I'm not arguing that. But if the offense hadn't given it to them, this is a different game. And I don't
think they earned they earned that one.
Yeah,
the punter taking a knee. Yeah. I don't know what the defense did to earn that one.
That's technically the box score will say 3 turnovers and 21 points off those turnovers. Yeah. It's 4 turnovers and 24 points. Right, and that's the way that Illinois is going to look at it. To Sturdy's point, I'll give you a little insight before we get out of here on my column. Everybody associated with Illinois needed to see this. Okay, you lost by 18 points today. And you didn't play great, and Ohio State didn't play great. But it was kind of even on who played about if you were to grade both teams, right? I think Illinois gets a little bit lower of a grade, but it's not like Ohio State boat raced you. But the chasm of difference between where Illinois is now and where Ohio State is now, you needed to see that. Because you can lie to yourself and say, hey, look, all we had to do was clean this up, clean this up, clean this up, and clean this up, and we're right in that game. That's why Ohio State's number one in the country, and you're not. That's why when you went to Eugene last year, you got boat raced, And that's why when Ohio State comes in here, you lose by 18. I'm not saying Illinois is a bad football team. They're absolutely not. They could go 10-2 the rest of the and finish 10-2 the rest of the way. But the gap between number 17 in the country, which is where Illinois is, and number 1 in the country, is about the size of the Grand Canyon. And people need to understand that. And that's what you're fighting against now, is that you need to see that the difference is pretty vast. And that's what I think Illinois takes away from this, is that we've got a long way to go before, we can really weakly think that we have a chance to beat the Ohio States and the Penn States and the Michigans of the world. And I think that's good. I think they needed to be a little humbled a little bit and go, hey, like we still got a long way to go in this build. And I think people needed to see that today. And that's, again, that's not knocking Illinois, because where they are is so impressive from where they were, but where they have to go is still very, very far.
Yeah, and I've got to address one is Signetti is a hell of a coach, so I'm not going to throw any rocks there. But he's also got dollars from Eli Lilly, Mark Cuban, and a bank in the bank chain that's in Indiana, and so he's doing it with some very good funding as well. So let's not make this into he showed up with 4 guys or 20 guys from James Madison and magically is all better. One of the things that he's doing that I don't think is talked about enough is he's winning because at James Madison he coached at a different level, and he's been able to identify some of those guys that he can bring in from that level at pennies on the dollar, and then he can spend more money for difference makers in the portal, and he's got the dollars to do so. So anyway, Matt, give us a wrap up here as we hit that 1 hour and 15 minutes, and you want to make sure we kind of get anything else that you think is important.
Bye week couldn't have come at a better time. I think Illinois got figured out that they're not there yet. They're not a college football playoff team, elite team yet. They got that, but there's a lot of things that they can put in front of them that you can go, okay, but the last 5 games of the year, like, we can win those games. So I think the bye week comes at a really good time because you've got players. I don't know how Josh Kreutz played or even finished in this ball game. I don't know how. I don't know. And so you got guys like Khalil Valentine that need to get healthy. You got guys like you got guys like Caden Fagan that need to get healthy. Aiden Lawfrey was in our post game, so like that ankle's feeling better and better, but he could use a bye week. And there's guys on defense up front that could use the bye week. So I think they're going to get healthy. I think they're going to recruit their brains out, like Brett Bielema said in the 26 and the 27 class. And they need to recruit better because, like Sturdy said like when I got in here right off the bat, like closing the talent gap allows you to make a couple more mistakes and still be in the ball game. But if you don't close the talent gap, you can't make any mistakes against Ohio State and hope to win. And that's a hard thing to try to accomplish against a team that's that good, that's that well coached, and is that disciplined like Ohio State. They're the defending national champions for a reason, and they play like it. And so I don't think Illinois has anything to woefully hang their head about, but I think they got a wake-up call today that they're not exact. I think a lot of people wanted to put them on the same kind of tier as like maybe they're that 4th team in the Big Ten. Maybe they are, but they've got a long way to go before they prove that. And I think you've got 5 more games to maybe prove that you belong there. But they've got a lot of things to work on.
Yeah, and look, let's be really clear. Ohio State's a darn good team. They won the national title last year, and this team may be better because I thought by the end of the year their defense would be better than last year's because they are young. I had no idea they would be this good this early in the season, which bodes really well for Ohio State fans. This was a really, really good team, and I don't want anybody to perceive like we think Illinois, underperformed, et cetera. It's just, this is a tough one. And, ultimately, I think as I look at it, I look at things by resources, and I'm thinking, if there's, Mark Andreessen's watching this and he gives it any type of care of Illinois football, maybe he needs to throw in a little because that's the the resource capability is to acquire talent is the number one thing in this sport right now, and Illinois could use some more. At the same time, I think the players and coaches are doing an awful lot with what they got, but you found out today you have to not make the little mistakes. Matt, one more comment from you, and then Brad can kind of wrap.
If I told you that Illinois was going to hold Ohio State to under 300 yards, and I told you they were going to hold Ohio State to only 2 drives of over 35 yards in the game, I think you would have thought Illinois had a decent shot to pull this off. So my final thought is, if you want to bury Aaron Henry on this, then your cake was proverbially baked and pulled out of the oven long before this game ever kicked off. And I'm sorry for you, but there was progress today on defense. Lots of progress on defense. You didn't see any major coverage busts. And you didn't see a lot of explosive plays by the defense, by that secondary. And that was what was emphasized all week. I don't think Jeremiah Smith did anything to think that he belongs in New York in this game for the Heisman Trophy. I don't think Julian Sayin did anything to prove that he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten in this game. I think Illinois' defense tried like hell to make Ohio State beat them with field goals, and Illinois' offense and special teams just kept giving them short fields and turning the ball over and making mistakes. And that's the summary of this game to me. But I think that there are a lot of things I thought from week to week that this defense can hang its hat on, improvement and progress wise. And if they go into the bye week and look at these last 5 games and play like they did today, I think they have a really good shot of going 5-0 in those games if they continue to play the way they did today, even without Xavier Scott. That's my final summary.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And of course, if you enjoy the stuff, you can come to IlliniGuys.com, 27 cents a day. And we've got Brad Sturdy, whose computer did officially die. Any final thoughts, Brad?
It's the next game, right? Next play mentality. You got to worry about the next one. Nothing you can do. Go back. You can't fix it. You made some mistakes. There's some things to build on. A lot of positives.
Perfect. So, like I said, when you see this podcast, if you can subscribe to IlliniGuys.com channel, you can share this with your friends. That would be great. And go to IlliniGuys.com where you can get onto our message boards and have one-on-one conversations with Brad, Larry, Ked, Matt, myself. That would be fantastic. And folks, until next time, which we have Monday night, we will do an Eye on Illini live on basketball Monday night. So be looking for that. And until then, go Illini.